Hey, I am back, and this is the second video this week. So my push to start creating more more content and perform more training is off to a good start. So where am I? Not good. Things have gone down. So I've fallen. I was 1030 2 days ago. I'm at about 1,000 right now, 999. And I think that's okay. And I'm confident that I will kind of re-click in at some point. And once I re-click in, I will quickly gain ELO points. So I know this from the past, and I'm confident that with this continued training, I will in fact see that. I've also found that it is hard to get my head in chess. So when I'm playing a game, it's hard to be in that zone where I am effective. And I think it's because I just have a lot of things going on right now, and my head, I have a little bit of monkey brain. So hopefully I can catch a breath and pace myself and really kind of slow things down to play more deliberate chess. So that's kind of what my hope is. But I'm just going to push through it. So what have I learned since my last video and with the training, I kind of did then and I did now? I think the answer is really not much. I'm going through this. I'm listening. I don't feel like my decision making is improving. And I just kind of have faith in the process here that the more I go through this, the better I will do. So, it's kind of a head scratcher. But again, I'm waiting for that eureka moment. I'm going to name my coach. It's just easier to talk about. And I'm going with Athena. I don't know. I just picked a Greek god. And apparently she's the god of wisdom, warfare, and handicraft. I don't even know what handicraft is, but she needs a name just to make her more referenceable. So I'm going with Athena, unless it doesn't work. We'll see. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into my last game. Again, I felt like the game was just awful. I let it get to a point that was strange and odd. So we will jump into this. Move number 5 is where I'm gonna stop here. I mean, everything's fine at this point. This is, the queen coming out doesn't let me do my standard opening. And I feel like matching that move is kind of the only thing that works for me. Okay. This is what I mean by weird. Like, this is just weird. And I just let it happen. I let them go all the way over there and don't really address it. So she's asking me, sorry about that. She's asking me, what am I thinking? I don't know. So I look at this and I don't know. I mean, I'm not in an awful position. We had an even game here. I've let this happen all the way. Let's see what she has to say. So she's getting ready to...
I like that you were thinking about the c5 pawn. That queenside pawn chain is exactly the right thing to challenge, and the idea of undermining it is a healthy instinct. But notice a couple of things. First, the move you actually played, 5 knight to e7, isn't the b6 push you were describing. And it takes your knight, already nicely developed on c6, and shuffles it backward where it bites on granite and blocks in your pieces. Retreating a developed piece hands white free time to get comfortable. Second, the real problem in this position is that white has grabbed a lot of central space with c5 and d4, and passive play just lets that space become a lasting bind. Energetic answer was to hit the center right away with 5 e5, striking at d4. After 5 e5 6, d takes e5 knight to e4, your knight jumps into a terrific outpost, and you get active, comfortable piece play instead of cramped position. So the takeaway, when you feel that itch to challenge white structure, follow through with a central break rather than retreating. Keep your pieces pointed forward, and don't spend tempi moving the same knight twice.
I'm going to do a little takeaway there and try to digest what Athena is suggesting to me. So what I did was I moved my knight over here, and that violates this don't move the same piece twice on the left. So we got these little red flags here to tell us when general principles are being violated. So we're in the opening. So don't move the same piece twice and control the center. So by moving over here, I'm definitely not controlling the center, and I'm moving the same piece twice. She also suggested the energetic answer was to hit the center right away. So the takeaway, when you feel an itch to challenge the structure, follow through with a central break. So yeah, a central break is what it was looking for, and I guess that makes sense because it hangs this one out here. Yeah, I can see that. So I push up there, they take. Yep, yep, yep. Okay, fine. That would have been good, and it would have kind of leveled out the board, but I did not do that. Okay, the next one's 7. And so when I do this coaching, I kind of feel like, hey, they tell you something, at the beginning of the game, and it kind of follows through. So my initial thinking was, I'm not sure. I'm kind of tied up here. This is just a mess. So I should really be working to free that. Let's see what she says. So she's looking here, thinking about what to say. And here was my move. My move was that. So maybe by doing that move, I broke her of her speaking.
I like that you were looking for an active, central post for your knight. Sitting a piece on e4 feels aggressive, and it's the right instinct to want a fight in the middle. The trouble is that on e4 your knight has nothing anchoring it, so white can simply challenge it and gain time. For something like knight to d2 or bishop to d3, you either have to retreat or trade, and you end up having spent 2 moves on that knight to f6 then knight to e4 without really improving your standing, and white gets to develop with tempo, which lets him take over the initiative. A cleaner idea was 7, knight to g6, hitting the bishop on f4 right away. Then, after 8, bishop to g3, you can strike at white's queen side with 8, b6, and after 9. C takes b6, queen takes b6, you've got a comfortable, active game with real pressure. The takeaway? An advanced knight is only strong when it can't be kicked, otherwise you're just giving your opponent free tempi to develop.
Okay, I can definitely take that takeaway, and I need to think about that more. So don't move into a place where I can just be kicked. That's just a waste of time, and it's worse than a waste of time. It's giving them tempo. So, okay, so what have I learned? When they have a long chain, try to break it in the middle, and when I'm considering a move, and they can just simply push a pawn to kick it, consider another move, because I'm wasting time. Okay, and then we get to 10. So back to where we are, moved up there. I thought it was cute because I was blocking it, but yep, kick it. Yep, just like they projected, like Athena projected. This is so stupid. I've let them march all the way down here. So it's asking me what I want to do. I feel like I can't let this happen. That just becomes ridiculous if I let it get down there. So I took it. So this is what I did. Let's see what their thought was, what Athena's thought was. So it'll take her a second to queue up the speaking.
I really like that you were thinking prophylactically here. Spotting that b6 could be annoying is exactly the right instinct, and it shows you're paying attention to your opponent's plans. Trouble is that grabbing on b5 solves one worry, but hands white the initiative. After 10c takes b5, white replies 11. Bishop takes b5, check, and suddenly you're the one defending, with your king stuck in the center and that knight on e7 still doing very little. You end up reacting instead of improving your own game. A more resilient idea was to fix your most passive piece first with 10 knight to g6, hitting the strong bishop on f4. After 11, bishop takes g6, h takes g6, you've opened the h-file for your rook and traded off white's best attacker. Then even 12, b6 isn't scary, you simply play 12, knight to d7, and after 13, bishop to c7, queen to e7, you're comfortably holding everything together. The takeaway? When you sense a threat, look for a move that both blunts it and makes one of your own pieces better, rather than a pawn grab that opens lines for your opponent.
Sorry, yeah, I paused there. I was thinking, which I've noticed is kind of an issue here. I need to be talking more. So progressing on here, we'll go to 14. Let's take a look. Okay. Warn me about that. So I made that move, and Athena felt, well, why did you make that move? Okay. I'm not sure why I made that move, but let's see what the right move is.
I love that your instinct was king safety. Castle is exactly the kind of thought you want in this kind of position, with your king still sitting in the middle on e8. The trouble is that the move you actually played, 14. e5 does the opposite of that instinct. It rips open the center while your king hasn't found shelter yet. Once lines open in the middle with your monarch stuck on e8, it's your opponent who tends to profit, and here it handed white the more comfortable, initiative holding position. If you wanted to castle, the cleanest path was simply castle's kingside first, but even stronger was 14, b6, striking at white's advanced c5 pawn and the annoying bishop on b5. After 14, b6 15. Bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6 16. C takes b6, queen takes b6, you've traded off that pesky bishop, freed your position, and your queen comes to a nice active post. A much healthier setup than the one you got. The takeaway? When your gut says get my king safe, trust it, and actually tuck the king away with castle's kingside before you commit to opening the center.
Yeah, I can get that. So, clearly, bad idea to be opening up at the center before my king is safe. So, what have I learned? I've learned break the chain in the middle early on. I've learned don't move to get picked. And I already know this. Don't open the middle if my king's not safe, because I do quite the opposite when my opponent, when their king isn't safe, I try to break open the middle. So I should know this. All right. Yeah. They did a good job of preventing me from castling. So what a mess. Where are we at here? We're at move 14.
I love that your instinct was king safety. Castle is exactly the kind of thought you...
Turn that off. We're at 19, 21. Okay. I didn't like that move, so it would have preferred that I'd take him with my pawn. Yeah, I can see why that is. So move 21 here.
I really like that you're thinking about king activity. That's exactly the right instinct in truant games. The catch here is that this isn't an end game yet. There are still 2 rooks each, both your bishop and white's knights, and plenty of firepower on the board. With that much material around, marching your king into the open on c6 leaves it dangerously exposed to checks and tempo-gaining attacks, and your opponent can start harassing it while you're trying to coordinate. The cleaner a capture was b takes c6, taking the queen with the pawn. That keeps your king snug, gives you a solid pawn structure, and lets you get on with grabbing the initiative. For instance, after b takes c6 rook from f to d, one rook takes e3, you've swept up a pawn and your rook is active while your king stays safe. Save the king march for when the heavy pieces come off. For now, king safety comes first.
This game's about to get out of control, so... One thing, there's another lesson, though, that needs to be learned here. So 23, I move that. And when I go to Athena, she's got an opinion on that.
There's a little mismatch here worth flagging first. You told yourself you wanted to retreat the bishop, but the move that actually went down was the pawn push 23, b6. That kind of disconnect between plan and hand is worth catching. Take a breath and make sure the piece you intended is the piece you touch. As for 23, b6 itself, it's a touch passive, and more importantly, it loosens the squares right next to your king on c6. With white's knights hopping around knight to b3 and knight to h3, you don't want to be handing over light squares near your monarch. Your bishop on e3 is actually a proud piece. It doesn't need retreating. A more purposeful idea was 23, a4, kicking the knight on b3 and grabbing queenside space. After 23, a4, the knight has to shuffle to a passive square, and you get time to bring your rooks to good files and march your king up with something like rook from a to c8 and king to d6. In these simplified positions, your king is a real fighting piece, so centralizing it rather than boxing it in with pawn moves is the way to keep the balance. Don't rush, improve your rooks and king first, and keep those pawns near your king solid.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so the real issue, I'm just going to scoot along here to the important part. The love and care and feeding of this pawn. So I've got a passed pawn here. I don't vigorously protect it enough. So as we step through here, I get to this position and I neglect this relationship. Okay, so this is move 30. Yeah, let's see what Athena has said for move 30.
I like that you were thinking actively about the f-file and trying to disrupt white's rooks. Creating problems for the opponent's coordination is good instinct. But here your real trump card in this position is that advanced pass pawn on d2, and the bishop on e3 was the piece holding it together, guarding the d2 pawn from a knight capture. The moment you played bishop takes f4, you gave up that guard,
Boom.
and white gets to snap the pawn off with knight from 3 takes d2. That single pawn was worth more than the f4 pawn. It was one step from queening and tying white down. Stronger idea was g5, hitting the f4 pawn while your bishop stays home doing its important job of protecting d2. After something like knight to b1, you play g takes f4, and even if white eventually rounds up the pawn with knight from 3 takes d2, you've kept the pressure and can expand with b5, keeping the initiative firmly in your hands. Takeaway: when you have a dangerous pass pawn, treat it like gold. Don't let a piece that's supporting it wander off.
Yep. So I think that was the last big takeaway here. It just really, everything starts to fall apart. For some reason, I thought that would work. But it didn't. Okay. It's awful. Right there, I knew the game was over. Right when he forked me, I was like, ugh, I'm done. So I resigned. Okay, thanks for joining me. Again, if you have any tips or comments, or if you just have tips on my play, I'm totally open for that too. So I know there's a lot to be learned here. So I always welcome input. All right, thank you very much, and look forward to getting another one of these out here this week. All right, cheers.